Welcome to the Empty Nest Era, the podcast that helps you navigate life after the kids leave home. I'm Jamie Chin, licensed marriage and family therapist and mom to two amazing daughters in their 20s, and I'm here to walk alongside you as you rediscover yourself, reconnect with your partner, and redefine your relationship with your adult children. Let's begin this next chapter together. Picture this. It's 9:30 p.m. on a Tuesday night. You and your partner decide you want ice cream. Not the kind in your freezer, the kind that place across town that closes at 10. So you grab your keys and go. No coordinating schedules, no checking if anyone needs a ride, no explaining where you're going or when you'll be back. You just leave. And on the drive home, windows down, music playing, whatever you want, it hits you. This is your life now. This freedom you're experiencing, it's not temporary. It's your new normal. Welcome to the empty nest lifestyle. And if you're worried that life after kids means life gets smaller, I'm here as both a mental health therapist and someone who's walked this path to tell you something important. Your life isn't ending. It's expanding in ways you haven't even imagined yet. Let me start by being completely honest with you. When I talk to people about the empty nest, there's this moment that happens. They'll spend the first part talking about the grief, the sadness, the adjustment. And then almost guiltily, someone will say something like, but I have to admit, I'm also kind of enjoying the quiet. And they look at me like they've just confessed to a crime. Here's what I tell them and what I want to tell you. You're allowed to love this phase of your life. You're allowed to feel relief. You're allowed to be excited about your freedom. None of that makes you a bad parent. In fact, embracing this transition is one of the healthiest things you can do for yourself and for your relationship with your adult children. So let's talk about what the empty nest lifestyle actually looks like when you lean into it instead of resisting it. First, let's address the elephant in the room, your schedule. For the first time in decades, your calendar belongs to you, not to soccer or baseball practice, not to band or choir concerts, not to parent-teacher conferences or college application deadlines. To you. I had a friend who told me that she cried the first time she realized she could just go to her book club meeting without rushing home by 9 o'clock. For 16 years, she'd had a teenage curfew to enforce. Now, she stayed out until midnight, laughing with her friends, not checking her phone every 15 minutes. She said it almost felt rebellious, like she was the teenager staying out past curfew. This reclamation of your time is profound. Think about what it means. You can take that evening yoga class you always wanted to try without worrying about who's making dinner. You can accept that last-minute dinner invitation without coordinating with anyone. You can sleep in on Saturday without being woken up by a teenager raiding the kitchen at noon. You can plan a weekend getaway without checking anyone's game schedule. You can stay up late reading or watching TV without worrying about setting a good example. This might sound trivial, but from a mental health perspective, having autonomy over your time is directly linked to life satisfaction and reduced stress. You're not being selfish. You're reclaiming a fundamental aspect of adult life that you temporarily set aside to raise your children. And now let's talk about something that doesn't get discussed enough in polite company. And, well, we're not all that polite here, but your intimate life. Yeah, you know what I'm saying. Here's the truth. When you have teenagers in the house, spontaneity dies. You're constantly aware of who's home, who might walk in, who might hear. You become masters of the locked door and the carefully timed moment that honestly doesn't always work out very well for your schedule. The empty nest changes everything. Suddenly, your home is your private space again. Morning, afternoon, evening, the kitchen counter. I don't know if we're that young. The living room, anywhere, anytime. No more waiting for the coast to be clear. No more whispered conversations about whether anyone's still awake. I can't tell you how many times someone's admitted, sometimes with embarrassment, sometimes with happiness, that their sex life improved dramatically after their kids left. They reconnected in ways they'd forgotten were possible. They rediscovered spontaneity. They remembered what it felt like to feel desired and not just needed. One couple told me that they'd basically become roommates who occasionally had scheduled intimacy. After their youngest left for college, they started dating each other again. They'd cook dinner together without interruptions, share a bottle of wine, and let things unfold naturally. They said it saved their marriage, not because their marriage was terrible before, but because they'd forgotten they were more than just co-parents. Let's talk about your house, your physical space. For years, it's been organized around your children's needs. Sports equipment by the door or hooks for backpacks, school papers on the counter, bedrooms occupied by people with their own ideas about cleanliness and decoration. Now, your house becomes yours again, and the possibilities are incredible. That guest room that was your son's bedroom, maybe it becomes your art studio, your home gym, your meditation space, or your library. That garage filled with sports gear, maybe it becomes your woodworking shop or pottery studio. That dining room table that was always covered in homework, maybe it hosts dinner parties again, or becomes your puzzle station, or it just stays beautifully clear. I'm not suggesting you erase all evidence of your children. I mean, I do have a heart. Keep the photos, keep the memories, but give yourself permission to reimagine your space around your current life, not your past life. Rebecca had turned her daughter's room into a sewing studio within a month of her leaving for college. She felt guilty about it at first, like she was erasing her daughter. But here's what she discovered. When her daughter came home for Thanksgiving, she loved seeing her mom's creative space. She said, "Mom, this is so cool. I love that you're doing something for yourself." The room her daughter needed as a child was no longer serving anyone. The sewing studio serves Rebecca every single day. Now, let's talk about something that might seem mundane, but it's actually incredibly freeing. Meal planning, or rather the lack of meal planning. And I gotta say, this is absolutely my favorite part of having an empty nest. From having one daughter who doesn't eat beef or pork to having another daughter that I call the carb queen, it could be a little difficult to coordinate everyone's, what they like to eat. So for years, you may have felt like a short order cook. Someone doesn't like tomatoes. Someone's going through a vegetarian phase. Someone has practice and needs to eat by 5:30. Someone's going to a friend's house. You've spent 2 decades asking, "What do you want for dinner?" and negotiating between conflicting preferences. Welcome to eating whatever you want, whenever you want. Breakfast for dinner? Sure. That experimental recipe that only you would like? Go for it. Deciding at 7 p.m. that you don't feel like cooking and ordering takeout without guilt. Absolutely do it. Eating cheese and crackers while standing at the counter and calling it dinner? Nobody's judging. My husband and I discovered we could eat at any time we wanted. If we wanted to eat at 8 p.m., sure. For years, we'd eaten at 5:30 or 6 to accommodate our kids' schedules. Now, we eat when we're hungry. Sometimes that's 6, sometimes it's 9. Sometimes we graze all evening instead of sitting down for a formal meal. This flexibility is liberating in ways I didn't anticipate. And here's the thing about food freedom. It extends beyond your own eating. You're not buying groceries for a growing teenager who eats everything in sight. Your grocery bill drops dramatically. You're not constantly restocking snacks or worrying about having enough milk. You can buy that fancy cheese or nice bottle of wine without watching it disappear overnight. And let's talk about noise levels and peace. I want you to really think about this. When was the last time your house was truly quiet before your kids left? Not just empty for an hour, but genuinely, sustainably quiet. The empty nest brings a level of peace that's almost shocking at first. No music bleeding through bedroom doors, no gaming sessions with friends online, no midnight snack raids, no 6 a.m. alarms from the other side of the house. Just quiet. For some people, this quiet, it's unsettling at first. Because let's think about this. Your brain spent years being alert to household sounds. But once you adjust, it becomes a sanctuary. You can hear yourself think. You can work from home without constant interruptions. You can enjoy your morning coffee in silence or fill the space with your chosen music, podcasts, or audiobooks. One person told me, I used to schedule all my important calls for when my kids were at school. Now I can take a call at any time without someone barging in asking where their charger is or what's for dinner. The increase in my productivity has been remarkable. Now, from my perspective as a therapist, let me talk about what this lifestyle shift means for your mental health and identity. This is important. When you're actively parenting, your identity becomes fused with that role. You're Alex's mom. You're the family organizer. You're the problem solver, the chauffeur, the homework helper. These roles are important, but they can eclipse other parts of who you are. The emptiness lifestyle gives you the space to remember and rediscover your other identities. You're not just a parent. You're also an individual with interests and passions, a partner possibly in a romantic relationship, a friend who has time for meaningful conversations and reconnection, a professional with career ambitions, a creative person with projects you want to pursue, and finally, a community member who can volunteer or contribute. This isn't about abandoning your role as a parent. That never ends. But it's about remembering that being a parent is one part of your identity, not the entirety of it. I once worked with a guy named Tom who had been so consumed with being soccer dad that he'd stopped playing music, something that he loved before kids. His guitars literally collected dust in the closet. After his kids left, he started playing again. And then he joined a local band. Now he performs at small venues about once a month. He told me, my kids saw me as dad their whole lives. Now they're seeing me as a person with interests and talents beyond parenting. It's changed our relationship for the better. This lifestyle also allows for spontaneity in ways that parenting simply doesn't. You can book a last-minute weekend trip without arranging childcare or checking school calendars. You can accept a job opportunity in another city without uprooting your kids. You can take up a hobby that requires significant time investment, like training for a marathon, learning a language, or writing a novel. You can say yes to experiences without running them through the "how does this affect the kids" filter. This spontaneity isn't reckless or irresponsible. It's the natural state of adult life that you temporarily suspended to raise your children. You're returning to it, but with more life experience, financial stability, and wisdom than when you had kids. You're returning to it, but with more life experience, financial stability, and wisdom than you had before kids. Let's also acknowledge the financial freedom that often comes with the empty nest. Depending on your situation, you might find that your expenses drop significantly. No more paying for sports leagues and equipment, school activities and field trips, constantly replacing clothes they've outgrown, feeding a bottomless pit of a teenager, car insurance for teen drivers, cell phone plans with extra lines. This doesn't mean you're not supporting your adult children at all. Many parents continue to help with college expenses or early adult life. But the day-to-day costs of active parenting disappear. This might create space in your budget for things you've put off: travel, home improvements, hobbies, or simply building your retirement savings. One couple had calculated that they were saving about $800 a month on groceries alone after their 2 boys left. They redirected that money toward a travel fund and have taken 3 international trips in 2 years. They said they'd always wanted to travel, but they just couldn't justify it when they had kids at home. Now, I want to talk about something that might feel uncomfortable for a few of you. The relief of not being constantly needed. This is real, and it's okay to feel it. For years, you've been on call 24/7. Even when your kids were teenagers and relatively independent, part of your brain was always tracking them. Are they home safe? Did they finish their homework? Are they eating enough? Are they hanging out with good friends? That constant low-level vigilance is exhausting. The emptiness lifestyle removes some of that burden. Your adult children, they're responsible for themselves. You can go to bed without waiting up to hear them come in. You can go on vacation without worrying about what's happening at home. You can turn off your phone without anxiety. Well, some of you can. That doesn't mean that you stop caring. It means you're no longer the primary person responsible for another human's daily survival and well-being. That shift is enormous, and it's okay to feel relieved. Sarah was a single mom. She had raised 2 daughters, and she said it beautifully. She said, "For 24 years, I was the backup plan for every possible scenario. If something went wrong, I was the safety net. When my youngest left, I realized I could finally just worry about myself. And it felt like someone lifted a weight off my shoulders that I'd been carrying so long I forgot it was there." So I'm not saying that you abandon your kids or you're not there for them, but not having that constant, state of alertness and panic that something's happening any second is really freeing. Let's talk about friendships. The emptiness lifestyle allows you to invest in friendships in ways that you couldn't before. You can have friends over without cleaning up before or after. You can take weekend trips with friends without complex logistics. You can be available for friends going through hard times without dividing your attention. You can join clubs, groups, or organizations that meet regularly. You can host dinner parties without worrying about kids interrupting or needing attention. Many people discover that their friendships deepen during the empty nest years. You have time for meaningful conversations. You can be fully present instead of partially distracted by parenting responsibilities. You can nurture these relationships in ways that feed your soul. I know I myself have really been reconnecting with a few of my besties, actually from high school. And we live kind of in the general area from each other. But with all the, kids that we all had, there just still wasn't a lot of time to regularly get together. And now that we're all empty nesters, we find ourselves able to get together much more frequently. And I'm loving that. I also want to address something important from a therapeutic perspective. The emptiness lifestyle allows you to process and heal from things you may have put on hold during active parenting. Parenting is all consuming. Many people postpone dealing with their own childhood issues, relationship problems, career dissatisfaction, or personal growth work because they simply don't have the bandwidth. The empty nest creates space for this deeper work. I've known people who have finally dealt with childhood trauma that they'd been avoiding, who've addressed marital issues they were just kind of sweeping under the rug, or people that have pursued therapy for anxiety or depression that they'd been managing but not really treating. I also know people that have made career changes that they'd been contemplating for years. And people have also learned to set boundaries with difficult family members they'd been tolerating for the sake of the kids. And this isn't because they were neglecting themselves during parenting. It's because parenting requires so much energy that deep personal work often has to wait. The emptiness lifestyle gives you the emotional bandwidth for this growth. Let me share something. When my kids left, I'd realized that I'd been operating in crisis management mode for so long that I'd forgotten how to just be. I was always anticipating the next need, the next problem, the next schedule conflict. It took me months to learn how to relax without feeling guilty or waiting for the next shoe to drop. And that transition was part of my empty nest journey, and it was valuable work. Now, let's talk about adventure and trying new things. The empty nest lifestyle is prime time for experiences that you've been putting off. You can take that cooking class in Italy you've dreamed about. You can go on the hiking trip that wouldn't have been appropriate with kids. You can attend festivals, concerts, or events that run late into the evening. You can try activities that require significant time investment: sailing, golf, painting, writing. You can pursue education, take classes, earn a degree, learn a skill. The key is giving yourself permission to prioritize experiences that bring you joy, even if they seem frivolous or self-indulgent. This is your life. You're allowed to enjoy it. Mark and Susan, a couple I'd worked with, they bought a camper van after their last child left. They'd always wanted to travel, but they felt tied down by school schedules and kids' activities. Now they spend several months a year traveling around the country, working remotely from wherever they park. They said it's like they're living a life they'd only fantasized about before. And I want to talk about the flexibility to help your aging parents if needed. Many empty nesters find themselves in the sandwich generation. They're done actively parenting, but now they're supporting aging parents. The emptiness lifestyle gives you flexibility to help without neglecting your own children's needs, since they're now independent or close to it. You can visit your parents more frequently. You can bring them to appointments without juggling carpool schedules. You can help them with home projects or medical issues without dividing your attention. This isn't a burden. It's the freedom to be there for the people who need you without constant competing priorities. Now, what about personal habits and routines? The emptiness lifestyle lets you structure your days around what works for you. Maybe you're naturally a night owl who spent 20 years forcing yourself into early morning routines for kids. Now you can shift your schedule. Or maybe you're a morning person who can finally enjoy quiet dawn hours without teenagers sleeping until noon. You can develop new habits that serve you, such as morning meditation or exercise routines without interruptions. Maybe evening rituals that help you wind down. Maybe your weekend patterns reflect your preferences and not your kids' activities. And, now maybe your work schedule really aligns more with your natural rhythms if you have that flexibility. This alignment between your preferences and your actual life creates a sense of coherence that supports mental health and life satisfaction. Now I want to address something very important. The emptiness lifestyle doesn't mean you never see your kids or that you're uninvolved in their lives, right? It means the nature of involvement changes. You're not managing their daily life. You're enjoying their company as adults. When your adult children visit, it's different. You're not in parent mode constantly. You can have adult conversations. You can introduce them to your new interests and hobbies. They can see you as a full person, not just as mom or dad. These visits often become highlights rather than logistics to manage. And here's something beautiful. Many parents find that the relationships with their adult children improve during the empty nest years. Without that friction of daily life together, the nagging about chores, the conflicts about rules, the power struggles, you can relate as adults. You can be the person they call for advice rather than the person they're trying to escape. So here's what I want you to take away from this conversation. The emptiness lifestyle isn't a consolation prize for losing your kids. It's not settling for less. It's not just surviving until you become grandparents. The emptiness lifestyle is a legitimate, fulfilling phase of life with its own joys, freedoms, and possibilities. You spent roughly 2 decades focused intensely on raising your children. You did that important work. And now you get to do something equally important. Live fully as yourself. Yes, there's adjustment involved. Yes, you'll miss certain moments. But alongside that adjustment is the opportunity to remember who you are beyond being someone's parent, to reconnect with a partner as lovers and best friends, not just co-parents, to pursue interests or relationships that you set aside, to have adventures you postpone, to enjoy your home as your sanctuary, to eat whatever you want when you want, to sleep when you want, and to structure your days around your own needs and desires. This isn't selfish. This is healthy. This is what successful parenting produces. Independent adult children and parents who are free to live their own lives. So embrace it. Give yourself permission to love this phase. Celebrate the freedom. Redesign your life around what brings you joy. Your kids are okay. They're becoming who they're meant to be, and so are you. The nest is empty, but your life is beautifully, wonderfully full. Thanks for joining me for this episode of the Empty Nest Era. If today's conversation resonated with you, don't forget to follow, share, and leave a review. It helps other empty nesters find this supportive space. Until next time, take a deep breath, trust your journey, and remember, this is your time now. Finally, I want to note that this podcast is for education only and is not a replacement for therapy. I suggest you seek out the help of a trained professional for help with your specific situation if needed. Thank you.